Hey, that was May 16th of last year. We had a Top Gun special. That day is very special to me. My good friend Michael Costanza made that video. My name is Mitch Taco Bell. I'm your host with Tall Tales with Taco. This is a special show, folks. It is 3 p.m. May 27th, the release of the new Top Gun Maverick, which we've been waiting for, anticipating for years, 2 years or more. And I've got one of my students who, when we worked together, it was just a fantastic time. And as we had a break and we're sitting there shooting the bull, he pulled a picture out, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, that's you and a guy riding a motorcycle down next to the taxiway." And he goes, "Yeah, I was in Top Gun." So I figure who other than my student, Lieutenant Commander Aaron Vernallis, to come join us. He comes from a long line of naval aviation. His father was one of the early cadre instructors at Top Gun back in the 70s, joined in March of 1970. He was a F-4 pilot, Vietnam vet, Distinguished Flying Cross, Legion of Merit, a real stud. And Aaron falls from not far from the tree in terms of growing up like his father and becoming a fighter pilot. So without further ado, I'd like to bring my friend on. Aaron, how are you, man?
Doing good, Taco. It's
Or
good to see you.
hey, or as I should just say, Vern. So everybody, this is Vern Taco. It's the happy hour of Top Gun, and I just can't thank you enough for coming on here. I know. Could you imagine being that actor that you guys started filming this in 2017?
I was about 17. Yeah,
17.
17,
So
18.
So you know that you just signed on with Tom Cruise, and this movie is going to launch your career into the atmosphere. I mean, you're going to rotate out past the space station, and yet you got to sit there and wait and wait and wait. I mean, how horrible must that be? And then you can't
I
even really
mean,
talk about it.
well, I mean, number one, you couldn't talk about it all that much because they didn't want to give away the surprise. That's why we're doing this interview after the movies come out. But it was kind of only when they would show up to North Island to do the filming that I even knew what was going on. So they would show up usually the day before. I'd get a phone call and they'd be like, "Vern, we need jets. We need them over on the other side." So we'd have to pull them out of reservation and get all that stuff going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I bet. So,
because
um,
as you know, the movie was shot in Fallon, Lemoore, China Lake, Whidbey, on the carrier, all over the place, and my part was just a small part in North Island.
yeah, but even a small part of this film is part of the largest thing. I mean, let's look at this. You say you've got a small part, which you know what it is, a small part, but it's cool as hell. And when you look at something like, let me get my deal to work right here. That's you in the background. There's Tom Cruise. They got this beautiful light. He's riding the motorcycle, and you're racing down the deal. That is, out of all the stuff, that is going to be so remembered, my friend. And I'm proud to say, I know the guy that was in that jet on that day, flying down there with Tom
Yeah,
Cruise.
you taught me how to land a 7.3.
Yeah, and you were telling me about flying the F-18, so it was perfect. Go back. How long? Your dad was naval aviation. I kind of want to pay homage to your dad because, frankly, your dad's a stud. And Vietnam, how many missions? Do you know how many missions he did in
He was
Vietnam?
over 300. Most of it was all up north off the Kitty Hawk and the Ranger. So he was
Yeah.
there from 65 through 72. Three deployments up there. The first deployment was probably the roughest. He was there with Denny Wisely and Charlie Plum. Got shot down on one of his flights. He's the guy who wrote "I'm No Hero." So I grew up reading that book and kind of understanding what my dad went through a little bit. The funny thing is when Top Gun came out in the '80s, that was the only movie I remember my dad ever taking me to. So we went to go
Really?
see that one. Yeah.
And how did he feel about that movie?
I mean, he was an F4 guy, so I mean, there was always the competition. I remember him calling it, the turkey and everything. The
Sure.
F-14 was the turkey. But I didn't know anything about his history. So, he ended up at 121, which was the FRS, the RAG at Miramar. he ended up there in 1969 after basically coming back from 2 back-to-back combat deployments. And so he was in the initial cadre of the instructors. He got his qualification in the 70s, and he's listed as an instructor during that time frame. So there was there's the initial guys, Dan Pedersen and all those great guys who, were in the trailer. It's a bit blurred of exactly how involved my dad was with all that. Obviously I found this kind of stuff after he passed away, which is a June 2nd, 1969 Top Gun manual with his handwriting and notes and all kinds of stuff in it. I know he helped out quite a bit. And I don't want to take anything away from the initial 9 guys that were there, but it's an honor to know my dad was there helping them out and was very involved with it. Before he went back, he went back for his 3rd combat deployment with the Black Knights, and he was basically one of the first initial training officers going into the squadrons.
And when did your dad pass?
He died in 2004, right before my first deployment with the bounty hunters. And so it was pretty tough, but I ended up taking his ashes with me, and we got him one final cat shot coming off the ship.
Oh, no way, man! That is awesome. How did you do that?
Actually, it was a fly off, and I carried him with me. We did talk a little bit about back in the F-14 days. You could put ashes between the speed brakes, back between the vertical stabs, and they could open them up and they could spread them at sea. And we talked about trying to do that with the F-18 with a Super Hornet, because you have the two speed brake spoilers that come up on the Lex there.
Yeah.
But there was concern about that actually hitting the vertical stab as it came out if it stayed intact. So because it was just gonna be a bag with the ashes in them. So we did the safer thing, which was I flew them off. Got the cat shot, going back to Lemoore, and then I spread them at sea at a different time.
God, that is just amazing, my friend. That is amazing. And I know he's looking down on you from heaven, going, "That's my boy, man. That's my boy."
That's where's it at? Oh, it's over here. That's actually him right here in this picture at Miramar back in the 60s.
Here, now
great picture. Yeah, I'll send you a copy of that one. It's F4 coming in during FCLP, so carrier practice, and he's out there with his hat on, collar up, Zippo lighter, cigarette. Nobody's got hearing protection. I mean, it's just how it was back then. It's pretty funny.
And the F4 is not a quiet airplane. Is that a tail hook behind you on your right shoulder?
That is. Yeah, it's an A4. I've actually got my dad. I grew up with an F4 tail hook on the mantle, sitting around the fireplace. And so I've got a Legacy and a Rhino as well. And then the A4 one actually came from a neighbor here in Coronado. When he passed away, his family had 2 of them, and I gave one to my stepbrother, whose father was also a Vietnam era pilot. And so I brought one across country and gave him one of them, and I've got the other one.
Oh, that's amazing, my friend. All right, so now let's go back. We've talked about a little history, and now you step into the office and you get a call from Ferg one day. Did Fergie call you, or who contacted you?
Yeah, kind of to go over who the main guy that was coordinating everything. So Ferg Ferguson, you guys will see him in the movie at some point. He's actually in there, like kind of running through a scene that I won't spoil which one. Yeah,
you got to give us a heads up. I mean, know what to look for, because if he didn't have a name tag or something.
Well, I mean, he's a fighter pilot, so where would he be? He'd be in a bar, right? So he's in a bar. You'll see him come through when there's a big incident that happens with a bell ringing and stuff like that. So I don't want to give away too much, but you'll see him come running by. But right. Ferg was the main guy planning everything. For us, though, where we kind of found out about it was, these rumor mills. It was that they're gonna film Top Gun 2. That was the first rumor, and then the second one was they're going to reshoot the motorcycle scene, and then they kept building, and then they said, "Hey, well, actually, you're going to fly in it." And there was myself and Commander Sinclair were at the depot. Kind of a little best kept secret is there's F-18 flying positions at North Island. There's only 2 billets. One's for ADO, the other one's for unrestricted line active duty guy, and that was me. I lucked into that job after I finished up a JTAC tour with the SEAL teams. So we started hearing about this, and Shine was nice enough to say, "Hey, you can fly it. I'll sit in the back." I'm going to tell everybody I was flying it anyway, so this didn't make any difference to him.
Oh, wait a
So
minute.
we,
Is that the picture of Vern in the back? I mean, you two are standing there by the F-18.
yeah, yeah. So that's
Is that
Sunshine.
Vern?
Yeah. So
Sunshine. Oh,
no,
okay.
that's not Ferg. That's Sunshine. Yeah. So Commander Brian Sunshine Sinclair. He's retired now. Former Navy test pilot, F-18 guy, and he's actually the head that you can see more pronounced in the pictures than mine. So
It's what else did you guys provide? You provided equipment, so you got to meet a
we
lot of the cast
did.
members, right?
Yeah, so how it kind of came about was, they showed up to shoot, and the first thing they wanted to do was that initial picture, and I sent you a copy of that one, but that's the one that everybody saw on Instagram that Tom Cruise ended up releasing, the Feel the Need,
Mhm.
and it's him looking at the jet. And now they showed up with his old helmet, and they showed up with a flight suit that he had been provided, but he didn't have any flight gear at all. So I had an integrated harness at the time at the depot because we could use those if you're not deploying into combat areas. So I had an integrated harness that had been built for me. So I came over, and the first thing we did was we got to meet with Tom Cruise. He was extremely nice, and I pull out the flight gear and I put it on myself because he wanted to see how it looked. And he took a look. He's like, "Yep, that's what I want to wear." The funny part was when I pulled the bag out, our maintenance guys over there, as a joke, had left a VHS and a cassette tape of the original Top Gun in the bag.
Oh, that's
So I
awesome.
brought it out. So I bring it out, I show it to him, and Tom starts laughing. And I said, "Hey, well, you know what? What it'd be kind of funny if you signed it." And then we threw it back at him, and we'll be like, "Yeah, he thought it was funny, you know." And then I didn't tell him that they were signed. And all
Yeah.
you should have seen their eyes when they found out. Their eyes got really big. But Tom played along with it great, and he signed it. And um, then we got him dressed in the flight gear. You know, we brought him
Uh-huh.
out there to the airplane. We had one F that was we have static airplanes that are in long-term preservation.
Uh-huh.
And so we had pulled one of those out, and we had to actually hand crank up the canopy because they wanted the canopy open because there was no battery in there at all. So the canopy was up, the sun was just right, and we looked at it, and this was the first time we filmed. It was around the springtime, and we get a lot of May gray that comes through. So they had we told them, you guys got about 5 minutes left until that sun's gone, and all it is fog. And
Yeah.
they went out there and they got the picture, and that's the one that they released. So that was the first thing that we did with the whole thing was putting that harness, and getting that picture done, which I still have that harness because it actually ended up expiring and I was able to keep it. So
Oh, no
maybe I'll
way.
donate that to like the Kansas City barbecue or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Put it on a flight suit and a mannequin and have your name patch on
Yeah.
it, worn by Tom Cruise. Do you know how much that would go on
Exactly.
eBay one day? Don't do it. Keep it. Keep it. That'll pay for your Porsche 9,000 electric.
They'll pay for my kids' college.
That's it. That's it. It would go for that. So, what about this? This is
So
the
this was one of the static airplanes. I think you have the picture. That's the F. So that's the one that was up in Fallon that Top Gun came down and it was painted, I believe, on the East Coast. So that's
uh-huh.
the actual one that was doing a lot of the flying. They really wanted to have an E model to be able to use to just do static acting around. So it was a late Friday. I think we had done the second shoot because we did 3 total shoots for the motorcycle scenes because the weather just wasn't cooperating. On the first 2, it was just too cloudy, and they finally got it
Yeah.
on the third one. We did that one in October when it's just beautiful out here and you have clear days. So on a Friday, I get a text it was coming in from Ferg, and it was, "Hey, we need to get that jet painted by Monday morning at 7." So we ended up getting everything coordinated and everything set up. We got the painters at FRC Southwest, and by the way, Paramount was paying for all this, so they would give me the dollars basically coming across from the account, and I had to go through my financial people, and we would use magic basically to turn that into bongo bucks for FRC Southwest, so the government was getting paid for the work they were doing. But
Wow.
the issue we had was the blue paint. Like nobody had enough of this blue paint, and the depot didn't have it. We had black paint, but we didn't have that light color blue. So we ended up
This
having to go and find a place on a Friday afternoon. Actually, I think it was a Saturday morning is what it did. A Saturday morning, I found a place to match that paint for us, and then we used that. We got it done on Sunday, and I walk in and I see the jet, and it looks beautiful. And then we walk up, and I don't know if you saw some early pictures, but there was some early pictures that came out of the F model, and instead of F5s on the side, it had
F18.
F18s on there. Somehow they had seen that, and they painted F18s on the side. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we're not going to have this thing ready because of this. They were able to wipe it off, get it completely done. They put the F5s on there.
That's it right
Our
there.
maintainers. Yeah, you see, those are actually F18s. They're supposed to be F5s.
Oh.
So that was an early picture. So that gets changed later on. It got changed on the F, and it got changed on the E as well when we caught it. So we were able to catch that, got them matched to the F5s on the side, and we brought it back out on Sunday. Our artisans that we have, these are civilians. Most of them are prior military that work they did the maintenance on our F18s out there. They did a great job. They got a battery thrown in there so we could run the canopy up and down, and they got everything all set. And that E model was eventually flown after I ended up retiring, but it was ended up flown to the East Coast, and it's now a Blue Angel jet. So it's one of the Blue Angel E's that they're flying now.
Oh, no kidding. That is the jet that you did the flyby with the motorcycle right there, right? With your CO?
That is. We shot it 3 separate times, and I think this was the first time, I believe, because it was the VX9 jet. But it was the final one that they ended up using. I'd have to look back at my flight log to figure out which one that exactly was. It may have been this one because there was 2 VX9 jets, and then there was a third one we used. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, that's Sunshine sitting behind me. He was the AADO there, so he was the integrated production team F18 lead, and then I was kind of like the OPSO out at the test line, as well as the ASO, and ended up working kind of both of those jobs when he ended up retiring. But yeah, that's how we did it. I mean, we got the artisans out there helping get the jet ready. They did a great job. They made sure these airplanes were ready to go. And then we would brief with.
Did they paint this airplane?
We knew what airplanes we had kind of coming because, basically what we were doing was taking jets in. They would go through a PMI phase, and then we would do an FCF on them, and then we would deliver them back to the customer, which is the fleet. So in this case, VX9, which I used to be at from 06 to 09. So we would fly them back up there, drop them off, and then drive home. So we always knew when these guys were coming. We get the phone call, and it was like, okay, what jet do we have that will be reliable? And we would usually go with that one.
That's hilarious. So you had to sit there and sweat bullets. Is this airplane going to go or not?
Yeah, I mean, these were jets that a lot of them hadn't flown in anywhere from 2 years to 10 years, some of them, and they were coming back out for their first time. So we tried to pick a jet that we knew had a pretty good track record. So there were times we only had Legacy Hornets, and we actually thought about trying to use a Legacy because the Legacy Sundown was coming, and it would have been right when the movie was supposed to come out. But they really wanted to have a Super Hornet in it, so we did our best to try to make sure we have one of those.
So let's see. Pull this up. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. There we go. I'm going to add an overlay, and I've got that fuel, the need for speed. Accidentally put it in the background.
Okay.
This is the shot with him wearing your gear.
Exactly. That's the integrated harness. That was the initial one that came out, and then Sunshine and I had just cranked up that canopy moments before that picture was taken because we did it with it down, and they said, "Hey, can you guys raise the canopy?" And we're like, "There's no battery power." So we ended up getting the tool and then having to crank that thing. It took forever to crank it up. But yeah, that's my integrated harness right there. I've still got that one sitting out in the garage right now.
It's sitting in the garage. All right, I'm going to tell you this right now. Yeah, sitting in the garage. All right. I did this May 16th interview last year with all the guys that flew in the original movie. So now you're part of the group of guys that got to fly in this movie. And one day, Michael Sheriff, big shout out to all the Top Gun fans, fan club. Michael, I am sure, is going to beg you to come on, and we're going to do a podcast again we had the original guys, Jambo and Hollywood, and just all the guys that flew the A4s and F-14 Bozo and all those fellas. Now we'll have you for this because I truly believe it will do to aviation because he is so intent on making this just a fabulous, over-the-top movie, real movie, I think it will do the same as the original, only better. Do you after seeing it, you saw the opening. What is your opinion? Is it going to exceed expectations?
I think it definitely will. I had my flying part in it was very small. We had a lot of guys like Walleye and the other guys who, they did the low level flying and a lot of that great, really tactical stuff. I basically get to do a quasi low transition and a brake left. So my part was very small, but when I first saw what they captured, because the first time I saw it was when everybody else did the trailer coming out. When I first saw that a few years ago, I was like, "This is amazing." The flying footage that they captured in there is absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
everything that Tom talks about in the trailers about how he's trying to put the person watching the movie right into the cockpit, it's just like that. And I thought the story too. They keep it fresh, but also a lot of throwbacks. But they keep it fresh going through with kind of new twist to it.
Uh-huh.
And it constantly changes. It's not just kind of like, hey, going through Top Gun like the first one. It's a mix of there's test flying in it. There's all kinds of great stuff. So I thought it was pretty neat.
Now, as a no kidding pilot who was in the movie, when you were sitting there watching it, did it put you in the cockpit? Did you feel you could kind of I could feel those G's when he's pulling this or doing that? I mean, did it
You can almost
represent
smell
well?
the jet fuel. It's pretty good. I got to watch it on North Island. There was kind of two showings of the premiere. One was downtown, one was on North Island. The North Island one was all mainly military independence. That's us there at it. So it was a great crowd, and everybody in there you could tell they absolutely loved the movie. So yeah, it puts you right in the seat. It gives you a feel for what it's like. It
Yeah,
definitely makes
good.
me miss it a bit.
Well, you're making all the big money now. You could probably buy yourself a used F-18, right?
I'm still a year one guy, so I'm not making much money at all.
Soon, man. But look, you could look at that if you guys could see this. You got to know that on a major motion picture to get your name in the credits is a huge deal because they can only pack so much into that
Yeah,
stuff. And Aaron, Vern, you got your name right up there, bigger than day. North
yeah.
Island, Southwest or something, Northwest.
Fleet Readiness Center Southwest. So that's the depot. And I got
Yeah.
to give a shout out to Ferg. Ferg tried to make sure that there were a lot of guys who flew in this movie, and he did everything he could to try to make sure that they all got represented in the credits. He did a great job.
Well, I couldn't get that video to play, but this is just to me a phenomenal shot of you coming off the runway, and on the video you can see Tom Cruise on the motorcycle.
Hmm.
Whoever's videotaping it is on a building up to your front and left, so it's a great shot of you coming down the runway, rotating the motorcycle, and then there's another vehicle. I'm not. What was that? A drone? Another
It's
motorcycle?
no, it's so the way that it was shot. Tom actually rode every single one of these passes that we went through. So we
Yeah,
briefed
talk about.
up. Sunshine was actually the guy who did the math on it, being the test guy. So what we figured out is that if he started off at 7 seconds prior to us touching down, so he was on the
Uh-huh.
taxiway. They had the chase car. They had this kind of big claw with a camera on it. So that would be chasing Tom, and obviously it had cameras on the motorcycle as well. 7 seconds prior to touchdown, he would take off. We would touch down. I would hold 130 knots going down the runway. I was on runway 29, which is a pretty short one. It's about 7,000 feet, 7,500. I would wait for them to call burner. When they called burner, I would basically, go full afterburner. The jet's at 130 knots, so I only needed about 5 more knots and I could come off. And then it was gear up, flaps up, and I'm waiting for basically the gear light to go out because of the NATOPS restrictions on a loaded roll. And as soon as the gear and everything's clean, and I'm pushing the nose over a little bit, I wasn't sure how much I could get away with because the low
Yeah.
transitions, can get you in trouble. And this was pretty early on, so I'm like, "What can I do?" They said, "Don't violate NATOPS." So I'm like, "Okay." So then I get about 300 knots and then brake left hard. 250 knots, obviously, for the gear speed. So the gear's up and then braking hard left. They ended up capturing a bit of that in the movie as well. So the scene looks. I mean, I'm a little biased because I'm in it, and I think it looks pretty neat. But it came out pretty good. They did an amazing job with the cinematography.
Well, this is obviously flipped around reversed because Tom was
Yeah.
going left to right. But if it looks like that, it's going to be just incredible, my friend. And I love that. There you are again, going down the runway in his helmet, in Maverick's
Yeah,
helmet. Your
I
kids
had
will
a
be
buddy
like,
of mine,
that was my dad.
another FedEx buddy of mine sent me a picture from Charles de Gaulle in Paris, and he said, "You're famous," and it's a picture of basically he's got this 4 or 5 story building. I think you might have that picture if you can find it, but 4 or 5 story building with me and Sunshine on it with the motorcycle, in the front,
Yeah.
and it's kind of neat to see that that's all the way around the world. And I told him, "Well, we're not famous, we're notorious." So
We're not famous yet. Whenever Tom decides we're going
yeah.
to release the movie, then we'll get famous. So,
Yeah, we're everybody's like, that's you in the plane, but I can't tell. So it's
yeah,
it's a
it's, it's your word. It's
we
your
know we're
word.
there. So,
That's right.
exactly.
I would have had him sign the gear, man, because then you just keep it and buy your kids free
We,
college
we we
kit or
tried to
whatever.
keep it as professional as we could, not asking for
I
signatures
know
and
you
stuff.
did.
But that the VHS thing was pretty good. Without those guys, we wouldn't have been able to make that shoot because those guys were providing flight gear for the crews on moment's notice. I'm signing 1149, which is these forms that you're handing out basically to say, hey, I'm responsible for this stuff if we don't get it back. So they put the crews together. They worked extra hours for it, and then the maintainers, the artisans that we have, they did an awesome job keeping those jets going.
Now, did anybody try to walk away with some gear? Ooh, pencil
No,
flare.
no, they. We didn't have to give them that kind of stuff, unless they were, actually flying. And that was one thing actually I told Tom was when we put the flight gear on him. I said, "Hey, I know you've worn this stuff before, but realize that if you pull those handles right there, the water vest is going to blow up, and then that's the only gear I have, and we can't do the shoot tomorrow." Because we're gonna have to get this thing refit. So I'm like, just make sure that doesn't get snagged on anything. And he was like, oh, I got it. So it worked out great.
Uh, yeah, did you guys like I met John Travolta years ago when I was a new hire at American. And by the way, Vern was at American until he got furloughed. Now he's flying for Big Purple. But when
Yep.
I met John, we didn't talk movies. We talked flying for about 40 minutes,
Yeah.
45 minutes. Did you talk to him about the P-51 or any of that? Did you get a chance to shoot the bull?
I saw him
Do you
fly
recall?
in on the P-51 a few times, and I didn't really talk about it too much. I think I mentioned that that was an amazing airplane. But he was actually asking me questions because we do our very professional brief, beforehand, getting ready for the whole thing. But he's like, how fast are you going by the time you're getting out of there? And I told him, well, I'm waiting for 250 knots. I got to make sure the gear and the flaps are up so I don't overspeed them. So as soon as that's out, I'm completely unloading at that point for airspeed, and then I'm braking hard left to the lift limit. So the jet was basically squatting with both the stabs, basically holding it right at the lift limit, accelerating. Completely slick F model.
Mhm.
Especially at the end, we barely had any gas inside as well. I mean, we were getting down to about 4,000 pounds of gas is all we had. So I told him we were hitting 400 knots by the time we hit Point Loma, heading out, and he was like, you could tell he wanted to go fly that thing.
Did
So
now he got to go fly as well, did all the other cast members, right?
yeah, they sure did.
So how did
Yeah,
they
I mean,
do
all
from your
the.
buddies?
I'm sorry, say
Uh,
again.
did your buddies give you any background on how they did, the cast members flying? Did they enjoy it?
I
A lot of
honestly don't
squeals?
know. I mean, I know what I know from the interviews, that they had, and it looks like
Yeah,
every single one of them enjoyed it. I have heard some of the guys talking about, like Ferg, for instance, that these guys could have been fighter pilots.
that's cool.
The ones that they casted to come in had that tough mentality. Cougar, for instance, or not Cougar. What's her name? Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Yeah, Phoenix. I saw an interview with her that when she found out she was actually going to be able to be in the jets, she said
Uh-huh.
she had to have it. She had to have that role. So
Yeah.
those are the kind of people that they were looking for, was people that could tough it out and do all the survival training and all the flying.
Oh, that's
But,
right.
but like I said,
They had to go through all the water
yeah,
survival, didn't they?
they did the Dunker and everything. Yeah.
Wow. And the parachute out there in Pensacola Bay, did they go to Picola? You know where
No,
you
I
go
think
up
they did it.
and you get released and dunked in there and the helicopter picks you up?
Yeah, I don't think they did that. They did more what you have to do for, basically the backseat qual. So I think they went to Miramar. I'm not sure where they did it, if it was Miramar or Lemoore.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be credits out for those guys who do all that training. But they basically went through, the dunker. They had to do the tread in the water. They had to get familiar with their flight gear, and then they also did the short shot, I think, ejection seat that they have to go through.
right.
The parachute part's actually VR now. I don't know if you know that or not. So they put VR glasses on us, and all of a sudden you're hanging there in the straps. In real life, you're hanging in a room, but you look out and you see a horizon, you see everything. You end up with a twisted up parachute. You got to figure out how to unravel it and then control yourself down to a landing.
Oh, no way. That's
Yeah,
well, God, figure, I mean, it's been 20, 30 years since I've done I've done that stuff to come up with some really cool toys to play with.
yeah.
The eye bar. That's there's a great picture of you here. Talk about the eye bar.
Okay, so the iBar, world famous iBar, is on North Island. It's an awesome bar. It's been there since the late '40s, early '50s. You had fighter pilots who were stationed at North Island. We had the S3 guys, COD guys, all the helicopter guys. It's still an active fleet kind of atmosphere. So all those mugs up there belong to fleet pilots. Mine's up there someplace in the back in the corner for the depot. Um, if you're ever looking for it, there's an F-18 stab that we got from the depot from an old burned up jet that burned up in 2009 on my Afghanistan cruise, and we got that installed in front of the bar. So look for the vertical stab, and that will show you where to go. We tried to get the crew. We're like, hey, you guys gotta film in the I bar, because there was even a time where the I bar might have been going away. We weren't sure what was going to happen to it. It
Yeah.
actually ended up getting rebuilt. It's absolutely beautiful. Cosmo Dupree did a lot of the work on that one. He was the XO and CO of the base during that time frame for the filming. But what they did was they built, and I think I sent you a picture of that, down on the beach. They built a giant eye bar, and all of
Is
us who
this
love the eye
is
bars
this
so
it right
much,
here?
that's it right there.
S-
Not any of that remains anymore. It's all sand now. They had to basically take it all down and completely remove it, but it's what the eye bar should have been. in my belief, because it's bigger, it's better, but it's still got the horseshoe bar to it. It's got all the planes
Uh-huh.
up top, and then it was right on the beach, and it was just beautiful.
Did
So
they
that's
move
that's where they
some
do
of the
the
items from the actual eye bar over to this set?
they replicated a lot of them. I think I sent you a picture, and if not, I can send it to you so you can put it in later. Of
Uh-huh.
me and my wife and my son Jesse, and we're actually inside the movie set iBar. And now that the filming's come out, we should be able to release that one. But it was a really neat bar. And all that stuff apparently is in storage somewhere, so maybe someday we'll get to rebuild it. But they actually replicated and copied many of the things that were in Lemoore and the O Club there. I think they brought some down as well, and then
Uh-huh.
also replicated things that were in the I bar at North Island.
That's fantastic. I remember going out there last October and we drove around North Island. Of course, I pull up and there's no F-14 on the stick. There was John McCain's
Yeah,
A4 sitting there. I thought that was kind of funny.
yeah. Well, the if you go to Point Magoo, which is my dad ended up retiring as the CO of Point Magoo, and he got to fly the F4 again. But if you go up there, I think that's where the F-14 is that they ended up using. So it's right there, right along Pacific Coast Highway.
Uh-huh.
There's an F4 up there as well.
That's fantastic. So you got to do that, and any other things with Top Gun? They asked you to come back another day to shoot. Did you said you had to do
We
about
did.
3 or 4 of those?
Yeah, we did over the course of 2 years. We did three separate shoots for the motorcycle scene, and each one of
Really?
those was about 12 passes. So we kept going around and around and around. Hopefully, you can get that video to work later and show it to some of the listeners. I think they'd really like it. There's the GoPro that we were filming from the inside.
Mhm.
Um, so all that I think would be pretty neat for everybody to see. But yeah, that was over 2 years. We they said, hey, they didn't get what they wanted. They're coming back again. And the final time was we just had a beautiful, no clouds at all day, and the sun just kept getting lower. And what I was trying to do was put myself between the sun and the film crew so that they would get the silhouette. So I kept getting lower as the sun got lower, and so I just kept pushing down, kept pushing down.
Right
One
there.
of the ones I sent you is the one that they eventually use. Was
That
a
one
pretty
right
good
there,
push
right?
over. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and we've got the video from the other side that one of the bystanders was taken. That hasn't been released or anything until after the movie came out, because we want to steal any of the surprises or the thunder of it.
Right. Well, fantastic. But you have an incredible career, and what I want to say about that is not only are you a naval aviator and saw action over in the war, but you got to do what we call fact tour, but you were JTAC. So tell everybody what a JTAC is, and what I find amazing about this and the character of you are the friends that you made in the Navy SEALs, and that's a very closed group. And for them to bring you in says a lot about you. To let you join the brotherhood and hang out with them, to be part of that team is incredible. Tell us about your time in the SEALs.
So I was coming up on my first and only non-flying tour. I knew that was coming, but I wanted to be able to stay operational somehow. And I heard about out in San Diego. These billets are also in Virginia Beach as well. But I heard that there was F-18 positions in the SEAL teams called a fires officer and JTAC lead, and that you get to go and get qualified as a joint terminal attack controller. So basically, you call in the airstrikes on the ground for all the jets. So rather than being like when I was in Afghanistan, being the guy dropping the bombs, now I'm the guy on the ground calling in the strike.
Colin.
And I ended up getting to go to SEAL Team 1. I came out and interviewed with Chris Brown. He was the CO at the time, and Beef was the XO. Great guys. They requested me by name, so I ended up going there. And then for 2.5 years, I got to do a workup cycle with them. Got to deploy, and unbeknownst to us, we ended up going to Iraq when ISIS was just coming in and attacking, and we were the first 60 guys that they dropped off. So we were there in June of 2014, and we ended up being the guys that got to do the call in the airstrikes when the Bush showed up, and ended up going on the offensive against ISIS. There's actually a book written about it by General Petard. He was Deputy Jiflik. It's called Hunting the Caliphate. I'm in there just as Vern. I didn't really want to be in the book very much because the team guys are probably the most humble, professional people I ever got a chance to work with in the military.
Yeah.
I know we see these movies that have come out and a lot of the books and stuff like that, but the massive majority of them are, they live by the SEAL ethos. They're all about the team. They're all about working together. And one of the guys I got to meet was Charles Keating IV. So Chuck Keating, you probably show some of these pictures later that I sent to you, but we all had boats. There's probably there, yeah.
Chuck right there.
So we all had boats, and we all were out on Glorieta Bay a lot, which is this place in Coronado. And so we go out there on 4th of July and all raft up our boats and hang out. I got to meet him after our first Iraq deployment when he rolled back into SEAL Team 1. And he was a great guy, really good surfer, just funny guy, like life of the party. And we would go out and we would surf the point on my boat, and then we'd come back in and go to Bali High and get the world famous Mai Tai. And it was a great time. And then they ended up deploying in 2016, and they were up north in Erbil, and they were heavily engaged with ISIS, Daesh, as they call them. Then they were having huge firefights. That they were working with the Peshmerga, but they ended up having to do a lot of the fighting to keep ISIS at bay. Sadly, during one of those firefights that he ended up getting the Navy Cross for, he took a bullet right above his chest plate, and it turned in and hit his heart, and they lost him. I was actually heading out to the point to go surf that day by myself, and I got the phone call from my buddy that he said we lost Chuck. And it was an extremely sad time. He's just one of those guys that it was everybody's best friend, basically. He was there for everyone. But the really kind of beautiful thing about it is that the C4 Foundation was stood up in his honor. And so they ended up buying a ranch, which is up near Julian, up in the mountains. And what they do is they take SEAL families up there post deployment. They have women's retreats for the wives. It's basically a place to go and decompress for the teams because they really need that, especially after 20 years of GWAT.
Yeah.
So if anybody's looking for a charity to give to, the C4 Foundation is a top-notch organization. C3, which is Chuck's dad, he's the main guy running it. They do a phenomenal job, and they're taking care of SEAL families in Charlie's memory.
Well, let's put that up on the screen. So if the folks want to contribute to a worthy cause, highly recommend c4foundation.org. And if you go to their website, you can see a lot of the pictures that he's talking about. I unfortunately was going through the stuff that I had preloaded, and I thought I got all of the photographs you sent me. I don't have, kind of classic, you with all the special ops guys, and you got little stars or ducks over all their faces and just you. And I thought, what good is taking the picture if it's got to be declassified, or
Well, those guys are many of them are still going down range. So
yeah, I know. I'm just teasing.
they don't want any spotlight. They don't want any notoriety. They just want to get the mission done.
Yeah, no, I got you, man, totally. And I apologize when this comes out, when it's finished. What I'll do is I'll go back and load up some of those photographs in the comment section so people can see your time
Perfect.
as a fact. I mean, I was just talking to a Marine F-18 guy today who was a FAC with one of the recon units out of Al Assad, and he did Phantom Fury 2, the taking Fallujah the second time. So
Mm-hmm.
he was telling some great stories about, dropping lid and having fun and hanging with the boys, and they were definitely doing some damage.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I didn't think a ground tour would be my best tour ever, and I had some pretty good ones. Got to do some really fun stuff at VX9. My fleet tour was amazing, but working with the guys on the ground is what it's all about. The air-to-air stuff's great, but saving that guy who's on the ground in a firefight is the reason a lot of us joined up, and to get to actually serve with those guys and run with them and humbly be able to be called their friends was pretty cool.
Well, that is a huge deal. Physically, you've got to be as physical as those guys, turn your brain off and just keep pushing, right?
To an extent. I mean, I definitely wasn't, breaking indoors and doing any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So we train SEAL JTACs
Uh-huh.
also. That was part of my job as well. So we go up to Boise, Idaho, and work with the A-10s. But we would keep those guys current. Here at Group One, there's a legendary guy who's been there forever, and he's basically in charge of running all the different SEAL teams training programs um, for the JTAC qualification.
Hmm.
As a guy comes in, a listed guy, he's either going to be a breacher as a SEAL. He'll be a breacher, he'll be a sniper, or JTAC is one of the other things. And so we train these guys up. We try to give them as much realistic training as we possibly could. When Charlie died, one of the JTACs that I'm still good friends with was there. He was the JTAC in control during that firefight. So those guys were doing that. I was more removed, so I wasn't running with them as much. But I got to do definitely some fun stuff. Got to fast rope out of helicopters, and learn how to rappel out, and got to do some stuff that I never would have anywhere else. So it was pretty awesome.
Well, man, I'd give my left foot just to be an extra piece of gear dangling off their belt, to be around those guys. So you got to experience some really extraordinary military time that most aviators don't get to do. When you're on the ground seeing stuff from that angle and feeling the concussion of your bombs coming in. Did you ever have any that were just so danger close that you got rattled a little bit with concussion or no?
No, no, not on my side. But we were dropping them in support of Iraqis right at danger close. So we
Yeah.
were having those guys get down, and because we were down in Baghdad, and so we were pushing basically through Fallujah, through Ramadi, and the Iraqis were heading out, and then we were basically coordinating the air, figuring out where the good guys were, figuring out where the bad guys were. It helped a lot that ISIS wore uniforms. Made that pretty simple, at least initially. But yeah, so we ended up calling in the airstrikes on those guys. But no, I mean, I never had a point where I was, feeling like I was going to get hit by ordnance or anything.
Oh man, I had a Marine on who was calling in. He was attack, and he was calling in airstrikes on his position in Ramadi. And I mean, the concussion's so bad. I mean, he's spinning around, pukes, get back up, picks up the radio, and the handset's broken. He's trying to find another handset, plug in. Crazy. I mean, crazy stories, fascinating stories, really.
Oh
really,
yeah. We had one point where we were trying to get the Iraqis to push through and engage with the ISIS forces. And they didn't want to do it unless they they had a lot of confidence that they were going to get air support, and so they weren't going to move until we sent them a show of force. And so we happened to have Bone on station, B-1 bomber. So I called up the Bone and I said, "Hey, need a show of force down the river line, right in front of these guys. Airspeed, altitude, your discretion." They brought that thing in full afterburner, probably 200 feet off the deck, probably a lot lower than that, right over the top of where all the ISIS, or not the ISIS fighters, but the Iraqis were at. So once that got cleared, he went back up to the overhead, and I get the call back of, we saw the show of force. We will now fight. I have seen the eyes of Allah, and I will win. Because those giant burners coming out of the back of that thing got those guys so motivated. So
praise be to Allah. Inshallah.
Exactly.
Inshallah. Here we go. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we talked about the C4. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? We're almost hitting an hour, Vern, and I don't want to keep you going.
Probably the only thing to mention about it is, in that video, if you get that thing to work, there's a flag that I carried. That flag was originally flown in Charlie's memory. So the place that we were at in Iraq turned into Camp Keating after he passed away in his honor.
Is that flag right there?
That's that flag right there. So you had that other picture of the flag being flown at the compound. That's at Camp Keating in Iraq. My buddy flew it for me on their deployment. And then that's it right there.
Right.
So then that was sent to me. I flew with it during the filming of Top Gun. So we carried it with us during the motorcycle scene. Also flew it up to Mach 1.8 in a Legacy Hornet. And then I flew it in over Glorieta Bay on Memorial Day weekend, right over the top of where all the boats were going to be. And came in, landed, and then brought the flag. And then we put it up on Chuck's old boat that was out there that weekend. And we flew it. We flew it on there, and it stayed on there until it's probably disappeared into the wind over the last few years. But it was kind of a thing we did in his honor and in honor for the C4 Foundation.
Oh, that's fantastic. What an honor. Well, Godspeed to Chuck, and look at that guy. That is
great guy.
great guy right there. Stud, All-American. Well, my friend, I am off to go see the movie. Going to go see it with my son and my dad. So I will give my reviews to you next time we get you, and hopefully connect me up with Ferg if he's interested. We give some links to the old ones. If you guys are watching this now and you enjoyed the original Top Gun, go back on my channel. I've got interviews with Michael Sheriff. We shared a podcast, and all the original guys from Top Gun that had anything to do with the movie in terms of flying or the extracurricular activities at the bar and stuff like that. Some great stories from behind the scenes. And it's funny. I talked to Tom Cruise's bodyguard from the original, Frank Whiteley, and Frank said, I kept a couple different things, but if I had known how big this movie was going to be, I would have stolen a hell of a lot more, because I mean that stuff would be worth a lot of money on eBay right now one day down the road. You just never know. Like I tell my wife, like, you've got cool stuff. I go, hey honey, whatever you do, don't sell my stuff for $1 at a garage sale. It's worth
you never know what
a lot more money. Or who would be interested in buying it? Hell, I'd love to have a tail hook in my man cave.
Yeah,
You kick the bucket, tell your wife, I'd like to buy it from the estate.
you got it.
I die. You could buy my flight engineer station, which you have no idea how to operate, but that'll be fun. Well, listen, brother. Until I see you again, I'm heading out to San Diego. But next time, definitely want to take you up and go out on the boat and
You got it.
drink some beer and hang out. I still think, thinking back in January of 2020, when you were at AA, was it
Yeah,
December?
yeah. No, it was. Well, I got hired November 19th, so I got right before the whole COVID swing hit. So yeah, it was there in
I
January 2020.
I look back on that and I still think you got COVID. I think that was the
Yeah.
early because you ended up going
Uh,
back home and getting sick, and I think that was probably bad enough it was COVID. What would they tell you? It was bronchitis or something, right? Well,
they told me it was
back
bronchitis because nobody knew what anything was back then.
yeah,
So
back then they didn't have a clue.
yeah,
So you're our first COVID case, dude. I knew it.
I could have been. Could have been.
Well,
Yeah, I
Vern, thank you.
appreciate you telling me to go home and get some rest. Us military guys weren't ready for that. We were like, just figured we had to just keep working. You know.
Oh yeah, man, you were pushing through too hard. Nah, man, just take it easy, get better. You got to relax, and that's what we're here for is to take care of you. Oh man, Vern, I can't thank you enough, brother. I'm going to pop you into the green room, and I will talk to you in just a few minutes. All right, I'll sign off.
Sounds good, sir. Thank
All
you.
right, hoorah. Well, folks, go out and see Top Gun Maverick and get a little refresher. Watch the original with your kids before you go take them to see the new one. It's going to be night and day in terms of special effects, the airplanes, the flying scenes. I am so psyched to go see this. As a matter of fact, we're leaving here in a bit and we're going to go catch the movie. Um, until I see you guys next time for our Top Gun special with hopefully Vern, Ferg, and some of the other pilots that were in it. We will have a behind the scenes with the actual people, not the actors, but the actual guys. And we can talk about their career as well. Because you see, a Top Gun or a fighter pilot has many, many other jobs and can do all sorts of stuff. There's Vern working with the SEALs. There's my buddy as a FAC with Marine Recon, F-18s. So you just never know what you're going to get when you're flying. But if this movie does what we project, it is going to motivate and inspire an entire new generation of young kids to seek the military, fly jets, fly props, fly whatever. They just want to become pilots. And if it does that, we've done our job. Paramount's done their job, I should say. And the rest of us, we can just sit back and love on that love letter that Tom Cruise made of Top Gun Maverick. Well, folks, until I see you next time, adios, hasta luego, sa wiedersehen, tschüss. Shesheni, au revoir, domarigato gozaimasu, tendo shinde kudasai, ciao, arrivederci, tashikor, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining me on this special. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share with your friends. You never know when I'm going to pop in and what guests I'm going to have on board. You guys take care. See ya.